Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Dallas, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Tannon Grace. How you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good, Nick. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Right? Now, this deck that you're playing has been worked through a bunch of players.
Yeah.
You're playing it, obviously. I know Brennan worked on it a little bit here and there. Team MGG worked on it, and a bunch of them are playing it this weekend. Who else has had their hands on this thing? Because this deck has gone through a lot of iterations.
So like a couple of the local guys, that I'd be messing around with, like playing some games and stuff with, they'd be like, oh, this card seemed really good, or this card seemed to underperform, because like as we get into the cards, you'll see some of the numbers are a little wonky on a few things. And it's been mostly myself and some of the MGG guys have had like a lot of input on it. And then the deck is a Constrictor Ballista deck, so obviously Brendan DeCandio is going to have his words put in. He audibled at the last second. He wanted to have a little more fun today, and you've probably seen his deck tech. It's a pretty sweet one. So it's been through a lot of players.
So we're working on Sultai Energy,
right?
And the big deck from the last format that everyone thought was going to come over was Temur Energy, which we are seeing a lot of, but a lot of people have kind of went to the next level, so to speak, in Sultai, because Temur was already splashing black for the Scarab God. This deck already has black with Scarab God in it. But you get a couple of new tools from the new set, Ixalan, but you're also just attacking the format from a slightly different angle. The Temur Energy deck's more of a bigger mid-range deck. You have some aggressive elements. As you mentioned, you have Walking Ballista and the Constrictor, but you also have Glint Sea Siphoner, a card that definitely hinges on the Sultai Energy decks.
Yeah, so like that was one of the main reasons to be Sultai for this deck, like to be a heavier black deck and not just splashing black. Is Glint Sea Siphoner is in a really good spot in the format right now. There's not a lot of decks playing Ballista, believe it or not. There just aren't. So it's got a natural prey out of the, a natural predator out of the format. And then there's just blue-white everywhere, like blue-white approach. I just played against like Grixis Control. These decks that want to go long, an unanswered Glint Sea Siphoner can run away with the game. Because like we're just drawing so many extra cards a game that like we're going to outvalue them at every pace.
This card just, it surprises me every time I see it. It overperforms almost constantly.
Right.
It looks unassuming, but you're always getting through for damage, which is definitely not irrelevant. Yeah, it has menace, which is good, so it's always pushing damage, and you have so much energy going around here, you're almost always going to have the energy the first turn, so you only have to untap with it once to kind of get the extra card out of it.
Yeah, like, it's kind of weird. It makes you want to play your lands in a slightly awkward order sometimes because you have so many fast lands in our deck, but you're very aggressive with your Aether Hubs in this deck because you want to make sure that the first turn you untap with this, you draw a card. Like, you need that to happen in a lot of matchups and stuff. So you have to kind of be careful at how you pace your draws. But if you get to untap with this card and draw a card off of it, you're a huge favorite in all of your games.
Right. And then if you're not landing this on the second turn, you have the Cub, which is just the all-star runaway of the previous Temur Energy decks.
Yeah.
And you get to do even more when you have the Constrictor on the table working with the Cub.
Yeah, you walked over during my match a second ago and took a look, and I was like working my opponent over with Constrictor and Cub. I mean, it's an amazing combo. You mentioned the Temur Energy deck earlier, and Cub is the most important card in our deck in that matchup because we kind of have a problem with the Hydra out of their deck quite often because our deck just doesn't answer it super well, but our Cubs get bigger than theirs. We have Cub superiority, so we can either trade off or even just get a bigger creature than theirs, and it's really important. It's like our Termagloyf in this deck. I mean, the deck is very important. It has like a billion 2-drops, so you need a good one and an impactful one every game.
Cub superiority, a new phrase you're going to be looking for in articles coming this week. Very important. We have Rogue Refiner as the other element of the deck, just energy, value, all the things you want. Then we have the card we have to talk about, which is Hostage Taker. This is the card everyone I've talked to, no matter what the decks they're playing, Hostage Taker is the card of Ixalan.
This is the other reason to be Sultai in this. It's a little easier on the mana base than in a 4-color deck because it's hard to run Glorybringer and this card in your deck. This is the best card in the deck. I mean, it's the best card in the deck. It's probably the best card in the set. It's very close if it isn't. It's insanely powerful. The things that you can do with this card are unbelievable. Already today, I've stolen gods from my opponents. I've cleared out blockers to get through enough damage. And then it's actually flexible. Cards like this generally aren't good in like control matchups. When in this format they are, because a lot of them are bringing in like, some stuff that you want to take from them. Or it allows you to do some pretty cool plays that you can do. Like a very common line before turns 5 or 6 in the blue-white matchup where they're going to fumigate you, is you just hit one of your own creatures. Like you hit your own Rogue Refiner, and like if they don't fumigate, it's great. You get to attack them more.
Yep.
And then like another thing is too is it gives you like some more mana sinks later in the game. Like there was a game today where I was kind of flooding out, and I had a Rogue Refiner in play, and I drew a Hostage Taker, and I attacked with my Rogue Refiner, played my Hostage Taker on my Rogue Refiner, and just recast it. You know, like stuff like that is just insane value. So the card is insanely flexible, which makes it really, really good. Plus, it also takes artifacts randomly, which is, I don't understand why it also gets artifacts. Like, it plunders your opponent, I guess.
Yeah. It has blue on the card, so you get to put artifact on it. Yeah. And then, you know, you have all that going for the card. Then you also get to build your deck in a way to take advantage of the Hostage Taker, because a lot of things everyone I've talked to about this card is you want this card to survive a turn, basically, so that you can do that. Doing so, you have Blossoming Defense and Spell Pierce in the deck, which gives you a bunch of flexibility in keeping it alive and also protecting other threats in the deck.
Yeah, so Hostage Taker and Blossoming Defense together, as Bradley Carpenter put it, that's a combo.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that your Hostage Taker lives. I mean, sometimes you have to jam it when you only have 4 mana and hope and pray, and that works out sometimes. If it doesn't, they usually spend most of their turn killing your guy. If you ever get to cast a Blossoming Defense on your Hostage Taker, the game is probably just over on the spot. We have a Spell Pierce in here because it's a little flexible, it's a little bit of a Miser's, but it interacts on the same axis as Blossoming Defense while also just having some random, you know, like hit a Fumigate.
Right.
Like that would just win you a game on the spot most of the time too. So, you know, it does work other duty. It's not just there to protect Hostage Taker. It is a pump spell that comes up every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, not very often. I did kill somebody doing an extra 2 today. But just protecting like Glint Sleeve Siphoner in certain matchups or protecting your Cub in certain matchups from a push is really good. Also, people in this format, since it's brand new, they still don't have the timing down on certain things, and I have gotten a lot of pass on their turn, kill my Cub in combat or during my turn, or try to, and I've had defense for the extra 2 damage. Plus there's raid in this format, so you should be killing stuff at sorcery speed or before combat a little more often. So you get a little extra damage out of it. It's going to be a known quantity after this weekend, so this is like one of the better weekends to have.
Right. We saw this early on in Kaladesh Standard as well. The aggressive decks were packing this card. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. And then another thing, your deck has a lot of plays at 1 mana, especially across the board. So your opponents have to play around all kinds of things, whether it be Fatal Push or any of these other 1 mana spells we just mentioned.
Yeah, and so you have dual lands too. So there's a lot of turns on like turn 3 where you like play a 2-drop and you're leaving up like a blue-black land or a blue-green land, and they don't know if you have Fatal Push, Blossoming Defense, or both. And it's a good spot to be in. I'd rather be the one asking questions than always trying to have the answers, especially in a new format. And our deck puts so much pressure on them. This deck feels a lot like the aggro tempo decks that you see in Legacy and in Modern, you know, stuff like Delverish kind of thing. You have a lot of like soft cards like Spell Pierce, cards protect yourself like, you know, like Daze or Blossoming Defense, and you have like very efficient, cheap removal. And it's just backed up with very powerful creatures. It's a very good recipe for success in Magic. Right.
One thing that is missing from your deck is the Bristling Hydra.
Right.
What was the decision there?
So I actually wanted to play it. It's another 4-drop. That's like the biggest thing. It's just another 4-drop. We have a lot of mana sinks for late in the game. You know, we have Walking Ballista, we have Hostage Taker, we have Scarab God. We're only playing 21 lands. You know, it's not a ton. Casting 4 and 5 drops is kind of difficult. You know, we get to do it more in the longer matches, which you'll see with some of the stuff in the sideboard. It's a card I wanted to fit in, we just couldn't, because you need a high velocity of like the 2-drops and 3-drops and 4-drops, while also not diluting your deck too much. You know, you don't want to like slow yourself down that much.
All right, well, we'll move to the sideboard. You also got Scarab God in the main deck, but this is a known thing at this point in the energy decks. You play it, it's good. You also have another one in the board, but we got a bunch of new cards in the sideboard as well. Outside of the negates and the Scarab God, every card here from Ixalan.
Yeah, we're trying to make some Ixalan cards happen.
Duressa, we saw this, you know, as soon as it was spoiled, people are like, well, this is the thing we need to interact with these control decks.
Yeah, I mean, Duress is amazing. I think this deck is one of the best Duress decks in the format because, again, it's kind of like I was talking with Blossoming Defense and Spell Pierce. A lot of your stuff costs 2 or maybe 3, so it's very easy to fit it in on the correct turn. You know, you can pace your game a little bit differently. Like on turn 3, if you really need to resolve something, you can Duress into a 2-drop, or, you know, as you go down the line, you know, 3 mana in turn 4. And that's really important because we have a lot of really impactful things that we need to have happen in matchups where it's very important to get your stuff through.
Now we have another new one. Death Gorge Scavenger, probably the hardest to pronounce card in the set because you want to say Death Gorger.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. I didn't know the name of the card.
But this is the new Scavenging Ooze, basically, with a bunch of little flexibility going on there.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's actually good in a lot of matchups. I don't love it against the control decks. It's okay to get like a Glimmer out of the yard, but it's like that's kind of like a perfect situation. It just kind of shines in any creature matchups. Like, it's pretty good against red because, you know, you can gain some life and possibly trade for a card later, plus it beats down pretty hard. It's generally a 4-power, 3-mana card. It's pretty good against, I played against some graveyard strategies. Like if you were to play against something like Brennan's deck, he doesn't like the fact that I have this card.
Right.
Because just getting a creature out of his yard every turn is a huge problem for that deck. There's also some small good stuff going on there. Like you can fight opposing Scarab Gods with this card. You can keep the fuel kind of away from them. And there's just a lot of flexibility with the card, plus it's just good. You know, the ability is almost always triggering. So
then we have the Vraska flavor crew here between Vraska herself, the Relic Seeker, and Vraska's Contempt.
So I'm a big fan of both of these cards. We originally had 3 Vraska's Contempts. The problem with it is, again, it's another 4-drop. You don't generally want to draw 2 in a game. 1 is generally enough. Exile is so big right now. Like, you need to be able to exile something like Scarab God or Hazaret, or just a big Planeswalker on the other side of the field. It's also an instant, so like I don't mind bringing in this card against like blue-white control, where they don't have a ton of targets, but like I want to hit Gearhulk, I want to hit something like Gideon, and just have an answer that answers everything, like some big card. Also, the 2 life is kind of relevant because exiling Hazaret plus gaining 2 life can win a game.
Yeah, the life is very important in that matchup because they're often squeaking out games with their deserts and things like that.
Yeah, it's a whole other turn of Ramnat Ruins. Is that how you pronounce it? I have no idea how to say that card. Yeah, it's a whole other turn of that not happening and killing you, so that's a big deal.
All right, lastly, Vraska, I believe you ultimated this card round 1 today.
Yeah,
so.
Round 1, game 2, I got to duress before ultimating this, seeing that he was just dead to it. Like, he had to settle the wreckage. So I was super excited. It did like 22 damage. And my opponent did like just Second Suns. I was like, well, you're going to be at 1 now, and I'm going to attack you with these 3 creatures, and hopefully you can't kill all 3 of them.
All right, outside of the awesome ultimate, how good is the card? Because a lot of the times you have to evaluate the Planeswalkers on their first 2 abilities.
So at first glance, I'll admit I was not a big fan. 6 mana is a lot, especially in this standard, where a lot of your games are either easily decided or you're just dead before turn 6. So this obviously doesn't come in a lot of those matchups. In the matchups where she shines, though, she's unbelievable. So she's a threat, right? So she gets, you know, she makes a 2/2. Let's not forget the fact that she starts with 6 loyalty and goes up to 8. That's
a ton of loyalty.
Yeah, so she makes a 2/2 threat every turn, which is a big thing. It also has menace. So like they can't just like chump block this. The -3 is where she really shines. And this is a big deal because it starts at 6, so you get 2 activations of this. Most Planeswalkers don't do that.
Right, old Vraska didn't have this the chance to kill 2 creatures.
Obnixil's usually 1, So this doesn't just destroy a creature, though. It destroys an artifact or an enchantment. It's week 1, man. We don't know what people are doing. Let's be honest. People are doing all kinds of stuff. If you kill a cast out with this, now they have to deal with whatever was under the cast out plus the Vraska, and usually they can't, you know, do that kind of thing at the same time. And then obviously the -10, it happens really fast, right? And it's generating creatures for it to start happening too, so you can actually kill your opponent really well. But the -3 I've been super impressed with. Well, I would love if it exiled a creature. Obviously that would be broken. Destroying is enough. It just kills most of the stuff on curve that it really needs to, like Gearhulks or something like that, while still leaving behind something that's a threat. And then, as I said, artifacts and enchantments, we probably need to kill something random at some point in time in the day.
All right, well, the deck looks great. You're 3-0 off to a pretty good start. A bunch of MGG guys are also tearing it up with it. So anything else you want to say about the deck going forward?
I think I would possibly play the 4th Scavenger in the sideboard. It just depends on how impactful it's going to be. I mean, like, again, we just don't know. But if a lot of people are playing graveyard strategies or decks where you want to race a little bit, our deck can get in situations where it's not racing very well in the draw. Like, if you don't have a Fatal Push against mono red, you're definitely a dog. That matchup can be difficult sometimes, but you know, we take our lumps where we get them. So maybe a 4th one over the Vraska, but I mean, this card's been very good for me today. But I've also drawn it when I needed to and cast it, so it's been great.
All right, well, appreciate you joining me here in the sideboard. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, Nick.
Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Dallas.